Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Thank you for joining me and thank you for your continued support. So the Work and Pensions Committee, as you know from previous videos and other things that have been online, they were conducting a kind of report on the Green Paper and about the implications of it and things like that. Well, they've published a letter now which they are going to send to Liz Kendall, and in it has some recommendations that it believes the government should take forward. Now, of course, this isn't legally binding. The Work and Pensions Committee do not have any power necessarily over the government to stop it, but it's another link in this chain of evidence that needs to be put to the government to hopefully persuade them that this is the wrong course of action. Now, not everything in this letter is good, should we say. Some of it's a little bit uncertain, but I'm going to read you some parts of it. The letter's very long, so I'm not going to read you the whole letter, but I will leave a link to it in the description so that you can have a look at it and read through it yourself. So I'm going to pick out some little tiny bits, pieces here and there so that you can get the gist of it. Let's take a look and I'll show you what I mean. Right, so here we are. So this is the letter going to Liz Kendall, and Pathways to Work Green Paper. I'm not going to read the whole thing, as I've said to you, because this is a very long letter, but I'll read out some salient points of it. It says, in summary, we strongly support the government's ambition to reform the social security system, including incapacity and disability benefits. We also recognise the financial challenges the government faces, and in this context the desire to reduce spending on health-related benefits, particularly by supporting more disabled people into work. But we also have some concerns about the potential unintended consequences of legislative changes, as well as the sequencing of reforms and the lack of full impact assessment. Now, the impact assessment is one of their main gripes in this letter, and it's one of the main gripes for a lot of Labour MPs as well. In light of these concerns, we ask the government to delay any changes to PIP eligibility until it has completed its review of the PIP assessment. We also ask of the government to delay its changes to universal credit rates, as the evidence indicates it might not improve employment outcomes for most claimants, but instead push many into poverty and further away from the labour market. It says here, the government will shortly be legislating to require a PIP claimant to score at least 4 points in at least one activity of the daily living component to qualify for that component, and to rebalance universal credit rates by freezing universal credit health for existing claimants and halving it for new claimants from April 2026, as well as increasing the standard allowance by £7 a month. Now it goes on to talk about what conditions you're going to need, but it's this part here that's interesting. It says, it is not clear when the plans to legislate for the additional premium, however, and the Green Paper contains no information on how eligibility will be determined. The changes to PIP eligibility and universal credit rates are the first measures to be implemented from the package of proposals. So it's basically saying there's no information on how you'll be eligible and how it will be determined. Also says the government is right to be concerned about the dramatic increases in the numbers of people claiming incapacity and disability benefits. We received evidence, however, that the best way to view the cost of working age welfare is as a whole, both health and non-health related, and as a proportion of GDP, and that, measured in this way, the level of spending is roughly the same as it was in 2007, while spending on working age health-related benefits as a proportion of GDP has increased by 0.9 percentage points since 2007. The proportion devoted to non-disability and incapacity-related non-housing support for children and working-age adults has fallen by 0.8 percentage points. The government acknowledges this broad point in the Green Paper. We also heard that the increase in working-age health-related welfare spending had been offset and could partially be explained by reductions elsewhere, such as those resulting from the post-2015 benefits freeze, the benefit cap, and the two-child limit, the last of which captures more and more people every year. This point needs to be borne in mind when considering reforms to health-related benefits. Now, this is one part which isn't entirely, I would say, a good thing, but anyway, the claim that this has incentivised people to be found to have LCWRA has been made by others, including the OER itself and the Lords Economic Affairs Committee. At this stage, we are inclined to agree with the government and others. The design of incapacity benefits, particularly the disparity between the standard allowance and the universal credit health, is probably incentivised some people to claim the higher rate. I'm not necessarily sure that's the case. But anyway, we were told, however, that other factors might also be driving people to claim both incapacity and disability benefits, including, in particular, rising ill health, including mental health, rising financial insecurity, particularly among disabled people, and the exclusion of disabled people from the workplace, exacerbated by the rise in the state pension age. It seems very possible that these other factors, which we will address in our final report, have indeed contributed to rising caseloads. If this is the case, the legislative changes might not incentivise work, as the government hopes, but rather push people deeper into poverty, worsen health, especially in more deprived areas, and move people further from the labour market, as evidence suggests has happened in the past with similar reforms. So they understand that this has been tried before and hasn't worked. So it's interesting that they've come to that conclusion as well. And this is the conclusion to the letter. We ask the government to delay any changes to PIP eligibility or universal credit rates and expand the current consultation and work to co-produce measures with disabled people and their organisations, reflecting the government's commitment on nothing about me without me. We strongly recommend that the government take a precautionary principle approach and immediately undertake an independent, comprehensive analysis of the impact of the proposed cuts in universal credit health support on employment, poverty and health outcomes. We also urge the government to delay its plans to amend the eligibility criteria for the daily living component of PIP and engage disabled people and their organisations in order to co-produce proposals for a new PIP as part of the PIP review. Most importantly, we need to guarantee that those who need PIP will not lose out. At that point, it should publish and properly consult on its proposals more widely. So in general terms, the letter seems to back up what a lot of people are saying about how, the government's talk about this is all to save money because everything's ballooning out of control is not necessarily the truth. And also that this lack of impact assessment is incredibly difficult to overcome, and certainly the Work and Pensions Committee have understood that. The Labour MPs have also understood that. So I think the reason why this isn't being published, or maybe hasn't been done at all, is because it's a very damning situation. It will show figures that the government doesn't want people to see. So I can understand from that point of view why the Select Committee are a little bit concerned that there is no impact assessment being produced. However, as I said before, these aren't legally binding reports. Liz Kendall doesn't have to do anything about this letter. She can just ignore it. But what it is, it's more pressure, not only on Liz Kendall, but also on MPs who perhaps may be slightly on the fence as to whether to vote against it or not. Seeing the Select Committee come out with this letter and saying, look, this is really not a good idea. We shouldn't wait. We should do a proper assessment and we should liaise with more disabled people. That may well tip some of the MPs who are perhaps on the fence, might tip them over the edge and say, well, okay, look at this letter. We need to be holding back on these changes until we have more evidence. We'll have to hope and see that that is the case. Let me know down in the comment section what you think about this letter, of course, what you think about the findings of it are, and what impact, if any, this might have on the government's decisions. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please do subscribe if you've got this far, as always, to help the channel. I'll see you next time.